Reliable, effective, convenient, and cool. The Beam Saber is many things, and with every passing series, Gundam finds new ways to use this iconic weapon. So welcome back everyone, Slothcakes here to talk again about the wonderful end-all be-all of melee, the Beam Saber. And while we did cover a general sense of this thing, let's get more into detail about things I've covered then plus some. So I'd recommend watching the prior video, cause I'm just gonna jump right in. But if you haven't, then who cares, let's just start the show. Today we're focusing on a specific type of beam melee, the internal beam weapons. Beam weapons that are deployed from within the mobile suits. And while we're here, let's throw in internally stored beam melee, which have the handle stored inside the mobile suit when not in use. Then there's a few oddballs that kinda really don't fit the category, but I do want to mention at the end. But first, why have internal melee? Why have a beam come out of your hand? Well, it's convenient and always ready for deployment. And while only being fractions faster than drawing a regular saber, that time could cost you your life. This increases if whatever you're carrying has to be holstered or discarded, then you gotta draw the beam saber, instead of just a quick internal activation. Next could be you don't have standard hands, so the only way for you to use a beam saber if it's a part of you, or maybe it's internal due to not having a normal looking mobile suit, or it's not orthodox and it's in a weird spot. Maybe there's a dumb gimmick. So let's go through the many Gundam universes and see the many ways this simple concept has been used and depicted. Now, just remember, in no way is this everything. There will always be plenty more to cover. But now, let's get started. For some basic internals, we have the Mach Knife from G-Ra Conquista, and his fingertips can each deploy their own beam saber, giving him some cool looking claws. And also his fingertips act as beam machine guns. Then there's the Kabakali, which his beam saber protrudes out the back of his hand. Then there's also many mobile suits from AGE, from the Vegan organization, with many of their mobile suits having beam Vulcans on their hands, which can also deploy a saber from the center of the palm. Like the Mach Knife, this gives the utility of having your two weapons, a range and a melee, literally at your fingertips. Despite this, there are many AGE Vegan mobile suits that carry other weapons, bolstering the firepower even more. Like the Zedora having a large tail sword, if the hand saber isn't strong enough, or having a beam gun giving him a longer range option, which can also deploy a beam saber. So you have 3 options to choose from, just in case you get bored. But what if you don't have standard manipulators, or hands? Then don't worry, because both the Thunderbolt 8 guy and the Turn X with the unorthodox claw arms can deploy a beam saber upon the center. But what if you don't have arms? Well, the weird dog mobile suit from Gundam Seed, the Lagao and Barku have you covered. Located on the side of its head are 2 beam sabers that can deploy out, and it makes it look like a dog holding a really long stick. But we have to adjust the Barku Hound, which has its beam sabers moved to the bottom of its head, which makes it look like fangs, which is cool, but most importantly, it leads to one of the most brutal scenes in all of Gundam. And if you want to see the rest, well, go watch Stargazer. But for some more odd spots, on the AGE 2 Double Bullet, he has 2 massive shoulder guns, and these can produce beam sabers multiple times his size. Then to the Victory 2, his Wings of Light does many things, but the highlight for the day is it deploys wings which act as giant beam sabers, giving you 2 massive swords on your back. I think you get the gist, right? They're practically everywhere. Hands, back, shoulders, mouth, but we're not done yet, no. In Seed, the Aegis Gundam has blades protruding from the top of his feet, and they deploy beam sabers. Next, while not used for combat, the Beginning Gundam from Gunpla Builder's Beginning G has real small beam sabers on his forehead, forming a V-fin when activated, which could give him a mean headbutt, so that's neat, but these are much more for the aesthetic purposes, and they look real cool. So when I say they can be found everywhere, I mean everywhere. Now with that said, I know what some of you are thinking, and get your mind out of the gutter, come on, sickos. But to answer that question you're thinking, to my knowledge the closest thing we got is the O, with beam sabers hidden under his skirt, and having 2 sub-arms also there that can wield them. So not internal, but semi-internal. But the Donazine from AGE has a beam cannon on its crotch though. So yeah, you can make the obvious joke to that, which I will when we eventually cover that. But while on him, he does have a beam cannon on his mouth that can also deploy a saber. which is supposed to look like fangs, but due to the shape of his head and the location, it kinda just makes it look like he has a chin beam saber. But it's still neat though. Still on Age, we do have to highlight the Age 1 Titus for not being the strongest or practical, but definitely the coolest internal beam weapons. The Age 1 can detach its arms and legs and form different units. Its Titus mode gears it towards close range combat, removing all forms of range, but giving him some cool alternatives. He has the Beam Lariat, forming a beam ring around its forearm wrist area, allowing what the name suggests, the sickest lariat of all time. Unpractical, yes. Cool, also yes. This allows for a simple forearm swing to chop a mobile suit in half. But this isn't the end. On his knees, he can deploy beam spikes, doing what you think, allowing an easy knee to the cockpit with some extra fatalities sprinkled in. And on his shoulders, same case, giving the Age the meanest varsity tackle there is. Or he can deploy everything and just be a walking wrecking ball. Then back to G-Reco, another oddity is the Gaon, which his backpack resembles 2 hands, and from these fingertips, you guessed it, beam sabers. He's got a total of 8 he can deploy. Maybe a bit overkill, but you do you, I guess. The fingertips can also detach, acting as funnels going out shooting or stabbing, which is a neat feature. Then there's semi-internal, which is a similar category which contains weapons that are stored inside when not in use. There's simple ones like the Tsunanju having them in the upper forearm unit, the Victory 2 inside the forearm, and the GPO-2 having them inside the waist armor. Overall, pretty cool idea, but there's some more weird ones, like the GPO-3 Dendrobium. This massive mobile armor has a 2-claw hand, and inside the middle is stored a giant beam saber, and it gets deployed out and gets caught by the claws. Then there you have a massive standard beam saber, which is funny because this massive handle could do plenty of damage by itself. Now, keeping it away for safekeeping is nice and all, but what if you want that beam saber to do something while it's put away? Well, we have things like the Queebly and the Cassatria, which have regular beam sabers, but when not in use, they're stored in the sleeve for easy access, but while in there, they double as beam guns. And with the Cassatria, each of its binder wings have sub-arms, which are equipped with a built-in beam saber. There's also the Zeta Gundam, where when he transforms into Wave Rider mode, his beam saber handles act as barrels for his beam machine guns. And a similar concept is found in the Double Zeta, where he has humongous beam saber handles that deploy an even bigger beam saber. But when they're stored away in the backpack, they act as barrels for his powerful beam cannons, which can also be used when he transforms into his G-Fortress mode. Then there's the beam tonfas on the Unicorn. These are beam sabers stored on top of the forearm, and they can be deployed there, facing forwards or backwards. They can also be taken out and used as regular beam sabers. Then there's the already mentioned O, with beam sabers stored inside the skirt and having sub-arms that can reach them, allowing him to wield 4 sabers at the same time. Then there's the Survey Gundam from Double O, which has a similar mechanic. He has hidden beam sabers in his forearms for easy deployment. Then on his legs and shoulders, he has GN cannons that can open up to sub-arms that also hold beam sabers within them, allowing him to hold 6 sabers at once. But now I think this is plenty of examples, right? May have gotten a little too overboard, but it's a simple concept. Easy access for your beam sabers is good. You want it somewhere you can grab fast, but maybe it's stored inside of you for practical reasons, not just for easy location or easy access. Let's look at the Gym and Gundam. They have it on the back. That's a simple spot you can grab it. But now let's look at 2 similar mobile suits but with a change of terrain, the Gundam and Gym ground type. Maybe having the spots of the prior isn't great, for these mobile suits go into more extreme terrain. It might catch on large trees, mountainsides, rocky hills, or whatever Mother Nature has to throw at you. And while the side skirts or back skirt might be a good idea, many of these mobile suits keep extra ammo there. So the ground types keep it on their calf armor, which pops open Robocop style, deploying the beam saber. And whatever your opinion is here, if this is practical, if this is reasonable, we can all agree this is really goddamn cool. I love this location. But now let's look at a different scenario. Let's say you're in your Gym Sniper Custom doing, well, sniping. Like I mentioned before, dropping your sniper to reach for your beam saber might take too long. Thankfully, the Sniper Custom has it attached to his forearm. This allows you to deploy your beam saber much faster if you just had to draw it, which could end up saving your life, making you able to defend yourself much quicker. And the neat thing about the Sniper Custom is you can just take out the beam saber out of his forearm and just use it as normal. Now, there's also the debatable ones that have to be mentioned, not just to lengthen the video, but because, well, who doesn't like talking about these ones? We have things like the AGE FX Burst Mode, which emits beam blades not only on his funnels, but throughout his body, which just makes him look like a giant beam pincushion. And while we did highlight the Victory Gundam's Wings of Light, there's the Phantom Gundam's Phantom Wing, which is just a much more bootleg version. Instead the back, it's, well, throughout his entire body, and it kinda makes it look like he's on fire. Then onto G Gundam, we have the Shining Gundam's Shining Finger Sword, and this one doesn't count because it's emitted from a beam saber. However, we can stretch the definition and count the Shining, Burning, and Darkness Finger as an internal beam weapon. Yes, the definition of beam is a little iffy here, but internal, it does come from the hand, so I'll give it the go ahead. This one is also a little iffy, but we gotta talk about it, and that's the Epion's Massive Beam Saber. This one's connected via a cord straight to the hip unit, and allows it to draw power straight from the Epion's own generator. This allows it to push an insane output and length, so maybe semi-internal, because it is connected to the mobile suit via wire. However, I'm only listing it because I like the Epion. So while beam melee comes in many shapes and sizes, with a plethora of uses, whatever your reason may be, having that beam come out of your mobile suit instead of a handheld device might be useful. It might make it faster to draw out, might be the only way to use a beam melee since you lack 5-finger manipulators, or maybe has some dumb gimmick that gives you the upper hand in battle. And like we covered, the hand not the only spot they can come from. If you really want to, you can have them come out of your feet. Who am I to judge? Or maybe you just want to keep your melee inside of you for safekeeping. Well, be my guest. Now, was all this rambling really necessary? Maybe. Did this topic really deserve its own video? I'd say so. Did I just do this to list a bunch of dumb shit about Gundam? Definitely. If you're new here, that's what my channel's about, and it will continue to be so. But the takeaway here isn't just a joke, but it's to highlight that something so specific, like internal beam melee, has enough info due to Gundam being 40 plus years old, and with various universes, with various stages of technology, and just various aesthetics, they always try to do something different. And no matter what you look at, no matter the subject, you would be surprised the amount of ways they have tried it. So, while we did cover a general sense of the beam saber, and with this I went into something specific about beam melee, this is in no way the end. With this subject alone, there's still plenty of things I didn't mention, and this will never be the end. There's still plenty of hyper-specific topics about beam melee that I can go into, but that's for another time. So, till then, I have to do the usual outro, and if my ramblings haven't put you to sleep yet, then thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed me talking about the many hyper-specific things in Gundam, and hope you look forward to more, because there's always more. But till then, Slothcakes here, take care everyone, and hope to see you next time.